Hi, I'm Anthony Poponi, and we're here to talk about the Community Foundation with Mr. Hap Channell. Hi, Hap.
How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, let's see. I'm a happily married guy and father of two beautiful daughters, and that's the primary thing that I do probably is be a family guy. We moved into Gunnison Valley in the late 70s, mid 70s actually, and have been here ever since, in the same house ever since. And so we put down roots and really appreciate the community. Um, and so it's been a pleasure. I was in the lumber business for a while when I first came here, and then went back to my first love, which is teaching. Once a teaching job opened in the Gunnison schools, and my wife and I both taught middle school until we retired in the early 21st century. And then, by golly, I ran for public office and served a couple of terms as a county commissioner here, which was a great gig. Let me tell you, had I been a little younger, I might have run for a third term, but we decided to hang it up after two and allow us to have a little freedom to travel, etc. And then since that time, 2013 was when I was, as I like to say, sworn out of office. We have just enjoyed being retired, both of us, and traveling and working on our place here in Gunnison. And so that's about, I think, the essence of who I am at this point.
Well, I see a few gray tufts of hair sticking out, and I'm assuming those are from the county commissioner days.
Well, actually, in those days, I shaved my head. Come on, you remember that?
I do remember that.
And so no, this is post-county commissioner days, but I think that really has more to do with my age.
So you mentioned a couple terms as county commissioner, and I think that's an interesting position that helped you maybe see more fully the full breadth of community challenges and issues and needs in the elected official role. And so maybe how does that transition to your vision for what the Community Foundation is doing here in the Valley?
Well, it was an easy transition, Anthony, because I had quite a bit of experience in the nonprofit world through the Gunnison Arts Center prior to becoming a commissioner. And so as a commissioner, you alluded to this, that you have to know, I mean, it's a very broad skill set and very broad knowledge of the community. You have to have not so deep unless particular areas kind of tricked your fancy and piqued your interest, such as the nonprofit world for me, quite frankly, among other things. But the old joke was when you became a county commissioner that the learning curve was a vertical line. That's just about the truth. There is a lot to it. But you get that under your belt and you go to a couple of trainings and you hit the floor running. And fortunately, I had a good mentor that was on the board of commissioners at the time, Jim Starr, whom you know. Mm-hmm. And so that helped a bunch. And so yeah, I did become very involved in the nonprofit community prior to being a commissioner, and it was a natural thing for me to get involved in the foundation upon becoming a commissioner, and then years after the commissionership. And I am a unabashedly huge fan of the foundation. I mean, the advocacy, if nothing else, for the nonprofit community is just incredible. How it radiates from that central office and the staff and what they provide in terms of services. And then the philanthropic ethic that is promoted through the foundation is huge, not only for the nonprofit community, but just the community in general. You know, it's one of these, I mean, if we all sat down and kind of listed the characteristics or the attributes of community that we want to have in places that we live, something like the Community Foundation would be right up at the top of the list. You know, I've had people ask me about it. I had a couple stop by. I was working out in the yard like I typically do a few years ago, and they said, I want, you know, how long have you been here? We were just engaged in conversation. What are you doing here? And he was actually interviewing for a job here at the time. And he said, let me ask you a couple of questions about the community. He asked about philanthropy, he asked about education, and he asked about the arts. if you can believe that. And that's the honest truth. And I said, well, you're talking to the right guy.
2 hours later.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was a real mirror into his soul about what was important to him in the community. And having a philanthropic organization that goes beyond philanthropy to include the advocacy for the nonprofit world, the education piece for the nonprofit world through the Gunnison Valley Nonprofit Association that the foundation founded. The various umbrellas under the auspices of the foundation. I'm so impressed with the donor advised funds that people can take advantage of. The Arts Center has an agency endowment through the foundation,
right,
which I heartily support. Any organization, nonprofit, that wants to start an endowment fund, to start it through the foundation, because they're the experts on that kind of thing and have their own team of investors. Just the various silos that they have that they look after from an umbrella standpoint in terms of funding, but also the impact that they have on the community at large in terms of the projects that they put together and foster. So it was a very natural transition for me, having been involved in the nonprofit world. Commissioning enhanced that because it helped me to see a broader picture out there, and the being on the foundation, being associated with the foundation was critical for me in my ability to affect community.
Well said. I think you're capturing, the diversity of things that the Community Foundation does, not just from, grant making, which is that direct giving to nonprofits through a community-funded program, and then there's the donor advised funds and support with endowments, like all these amazing programs that are maybe sort of like a layer behind the scenes for the general public, where most of us just write our checks because we recognize the grant program is pushing money back to nonprofits, but there's so much more. You mentioned your transition where you went from county commissioner to more of a leadership role with the Community Foundation. Tell us about that.
Well, I actually became a member of the foundation board while I was a county commissioner.
Okay.
And then it just continued after my second term was up from county commissioning. I stayed on the board just because I believe in the mission and the work that the foundation does. I was on it for a while, and then for a few years, and then I transitioned to the advisory board. The foundation has somewhat of a unique approach to an advisory board, because I'm familiar generally with advisory councils or advisory boards throughout the nonprofit community, and the foundation has a pretty unique one. And then I was forced to resign from that because of another commitment. But I still continue to stay very close to the work of the foundation. I pick the staff's brain continuously because I'm involved with a private nonprofit foundation out of Colorado Springs that funds quite a bit of money statewide. And I have a conversation. In fact, I just had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with Lauren about this, basically the state of the nonprofit world in the Gunnison Valley, and she was able to bring me up to date and kind of be my eyes and ears, if you will, on the ground in the nonprofit community. So I continue to benefit significantly from the foundation, and appreciate so much that a community of our size, my gosh, has such an impactful organization. A community amenity, whatever you want to call it, it's just a huge kind of thing, and it's been terrific to continue to be associated with it, even though somewhat ancillary since I'm no longer on the board.
You're still involved on the day-to-day part of it.
I try to be as much as I can be.
That advice part, So,
Yeah.
well, thanks, Hap, for making time to chat with us today.
My pleasure, Anthony. Good to see you.
You as well.
Thanks.